Terry McCormick, Blaine Keller, and Chris Yao welcoming you into another edition of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Spirits aren't high at this point, guys. Titans 2-8 now after a 23-13 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. But in regards to quarterback play, maybe some bright spots, maybe some things trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yesterday was probably, statistically at least, one of Will Levis's best days as a Titan. 17 of 31, 295 yards, including a 98-yard touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akina. Also had a couple of other great throws that were called back because of penalties. But Levis is apparently trending in the right direction, even if the Titans as a whole certainly are not.
Chris, any rants this week? Any big thoughts out of after last week's breakdown?
I have a topic I could rant about, but you know what? I honestly don't blame Nashvillians and Tennessee Titans fans for not showing up sometimes. So I can, you got to hit them where it hurts, and that's the pocketbook. So if you're not happy with the way the franchise is going, don't show up and see what happens. So we'll see. I don't know if I'm mad at the fans or not. So, but no rants. If I was going to, though, I guess it would be on allowing Nissan Stadium to become a de facto home game for whomever is showing up that week.
Yeah, Skull Chants rang out in Nissan Stadium yesterday, really clad in purple, white, and gold. Not a whole lot of Titans fans there. I think Terry estimated it about 70-30. It was close to that. At least it felt that way. We're going to change the format of the show this week. We're going to take a break. When we come back, our stat stuffers and stock report, and stick around for an interview with former Titan Blaine Bishop. We'll be back on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast.
Being a part of a cooperative is being a part of something bigger. Farm Credit Mid-America is a customer-owned lender that specializes in agricultural financing for farm real estate, operating, and farm equipment. A unique benefit of being a part of the Farm Credit Mid-America Cooperative is our patronage program, which has put over $1 billion back in our customers' hands over the last 7 years. That's the power of a cooperative. Visit us at fcma.com to learn more.
I own the land.
I farm the land. Together we're farmers.
This is our cooperative.
Titans stock report kicks off the second section of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, and I wanted to touch on something you mentioned there right before the break, Chris. The Vikings show out yesterday, kind of continuing this concerning trend, maybe a stock down of Titans fans' interest in showing up to the games, kind of going through this season's home games for the Titans. Defensive lineman Quentin Williams of the New York Jets said during their game in September, it felt like half the stadium of Nissan Stadium was Jets fans. Felt like at least a 50-50 split to a visiting player. You go back to the Green Bay game after that, where there weren't a whole lot of Titans fans there. Chance of Go Pack Go rang out across the stadium that day. And then it felt like yesterday's Minnesota game was an all-timer in regards to maybe Titans fans giving away their tickets to brokers and allowing the visiting team to occupy Nissan Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it was as bad as I've ever seen it, Blaine. I mean, I've been covering this team since 1997, and really the only thing that really rivals it was the game in Memphis where, they already knew that they were a lame duck there and were not going to be returning. And Bud Adams saw 40,000 Steeler fans in the stadium at the Liberty Bowl, and he said, enough, we're playing at Vanderbilt the next year. So it kind of rivals that. And Nashville being a destination city, you're going to have some of that more so than you are in places like Buffalo or Kansas City. But, the fact that, so many fans of the other team are able to get their hands on tickets through these brokers or, on the street or whatever. It's kind of embarrassing for the Titans that, the stadium is clad in a color that's not blue.
Yeah, we got plenty of shades of it to I mean, my goodness. No, as I was watching folks on Facebook, I had a couple of friends who were there, and they were saying, "Send help! We need help! Can we just get a section and just all be in one section, because that would make us feel better?" Because poor Titans fans were just scattered amongst Viking fans yesterday, and they were all very annoyed, I'm sure. Blaine, I think I've got 2 stock downs. And number one, NFL officiating is horrible and not getting any better. And it's not getting any better because college football officiating is horrible. And so there's not really much you can do about it. But number 2, offensive line. I mean, my goodness, what a terrible day they had. 10 TFLs, 9 quarterback hits. I mean, the fact that Will Levis did what he did was just insanity, considering that he was fighting for his life back there. 33 yards rushing?
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, just a terrible day for the offensive line.
I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think this Titans offensive line had much of an issue with illegal formation penalties before Isaiah Prince stepped into the right tackle role. But before that, Leroy Watson had issues with false starts and holds. And before that, and even on Sunday, Nicholas Petit-Frere had problems with sacks. The Titans have a glaring issue at right tackle, and I think Brian Callahan mentioned that in his post-game presser. It's not going to get any better until you can find someone who's going to maybe give you a little bit less of either of those things, the penalties or the sacks, because both of those are plaguing this team at this point.
There's no doubt about it. And my stock down, one of them was going to go to Isaiah Prince. Just, his debut blocking was not his problem. Getting lined up correctly was his problem. So, everything that they have tried there has just been a disaster. They've played 5 different guys at right tackle this year and still have yet to find anyone who can lock down that position even reasonably long enough to allow the plays to develop. And, you're right about Will Levis. We have, been critical of him at times this year, and deservedly so for some of his play early on. But, to do what he did yesterday with very little help on the line and a lot, and going up against arguably the best defense in the league, that's at least a step in the right direction, and given the circumstances. The other thing, too, that I'm going to have to give a stock down to is the Titans' pass rush. Eventually, they got to Sam Darnold a couple of times and made some and got a couple of sacks. But in the first half, how many times did they have Sam Darnold trapped like a mouse in a corner, and he would just dart out some hole and go and throw the ball to a receiver down the field or even scramble? So, this Titans pass rush did not get home yesterday the way that they needed to keep this team in the game.
Talking about Isaiah Prince here, talked with him after the game about those 3 illegal formation penalties, another stock down for this team that's been a concerning trend. We'll probably get to that in the stat stuffers, just in the wrong way for the Titans. Isaiah Prince said that he was kind of flagged for the same exact thing each time, not lining up behind the center's heels. J.C. Latham said he was warned once about that at the start of the game. You'd assume Isaiah Prince was warned about it as well and just never figured it out. But Chris, going to your point about the rushing attack and the lack thereof against this really tough defense, Tony Pollard, 15 rushing yards. That's his fewest in 3 years. It, again, kind of speaks more to the stock up of Will Levis and his ability to put together a really impressive stat line, his second best stat line of his career, against a really tough defense with very little help outside of that.
Yeah, no question. Let's get into stat stuffers, eh?
Stat stuffer for you. The number 8 Tennessee Titans have been flagged for 8 or more penalties in 7 of their 10 games this season. On Sunday, they were flagged 13 times, one of which was, of course, a very questionable call that had Brian Callahan miffed, that reset the chains on a 4th and goal for Minnesota. Mike Brown was flagged for unnecessary roughness there. Chris?
Keep going with that, and we'll get back to Isaiah in a minute.
The unnecessary roughness turned into an unsportsmanlike conduct for Brian Callahan. In the aftermath of that, turned into a Vikings touchdown. Jarvis Brownlee was flagged a couple of times, but this team has struggled all year long with penalties, and it really just shone in the spotlight on Sunday.
Yeah, well, so I want to go back to that the penalty where it knocked the touchdown off the board to Calvin Ridley, or at least the long pass play to Calvin Ridley. Have you seen the pre-snap screenshot?
Yeah, I didn't see anything. That
if he's not lined up correctly, I don't know what lined up correctly is.
Yeah, it's a 51-yard touchdown that took out, that was knocked off at that point.
I mean, you agree, Terry?
Was the slot receiver was kind of covering him up. You really couldn't see where he was, but it did not appear that he was egregiously out of position from what you could see.
It certainly didn't to me. I couldn't figure out where it was. And then someone said, well, it was on the tackle. I said, which one? Because it looks like Latham's right foot is, pretty far back. Was it on Latham? They said, no, it was on the right tackle. I said, well, that's insane because the right tackle is clearly lined up correctly in this picture. So I don't know what's going on. Anyway,
well, it's
again,
a 14-point swing there when you talk about Calvin Ridley's touchdown being called back and then the 4th and goal play being reverted to a fresh set of downs for Minnesota. Mike Brown was flagged for that unnecessary roughness on 4th and goal. Asked him about that in the locker room. He didn't receive an explanation on the play. NFL officials in the pool report afterwards said it was him launching into Jordan Addison, who wasn't going to come down with the catch. Look, they said it was a helmet hit. You look at the replay, clearly not that. Terry, how do you kind of explain that?
He said the pool report said forcible contact to the chest and neck area. When did head and neck area become chest and neck area?
Well, when you say, talk about the pool report, this is 2 weeks in a row that the Titans have been in a pool report. And there's usually not one of those a year. And to have 2 in a row, that's pretty bad. I didn't think Mike Brown's play was out of line at all.
Well, that's because it wasn't, Terry.
I thought he made a clean hit, dislodged the football, and the Titans had the 4th down stop. On the Isaiah Prince stuff, obviously kind of a matter of judgment. If I'm Isaiah Prince, I got to lay some of that on him because after you've been warned, after it's been called, then you've got to make extra sure that you're up on the line so that it doesn't get called again.
J.C. Latham said it's simple. Don't leave any room for doubt for penalties. And again, some were questionable on Sunday, but 13 of them were not. The Titans in the locker room said a lot of this stuff is correctable. In week 13, it should be already fixed. Isaiah Prince may be an outlier because he's new. This is his first time on the team, first time playing in a couple of years. But a lot of these penalties are kind of things just coming back to haunt this team. And really on Sunday, that was the case. We've talked a lot about penalties. Do we have any other stat stuffers for Sunday's game?
I've got a couple here. All right. The numbers 5 and 1. 5 is the number of touchdown catches that Nick Westbrook-Akina has this year. 1 is the contract that he's playing under. For the 3rd straight year, he is on a 1-year contract. This is a guy that has been, a very valuable player, whether it's on special teams and now as a receiver. Rank Carthon needs to dial up a long-term extension for this guy this offseason. 2 years, 3 years. He's a very productive player. Get it done so that Nick Westbrook-Akina finally has some job security.
He tied a Titans record on Sunday.
Yeah.
With the 98-yarder, yeah.
Did y'all see
team history?
Did y'all see the tweet from the 33rd team FB?
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't see this.
I mean, for those of you who haven't seen it, Nick Westbrook-Akina has more touchdowns this season and has only played about half the season because all of his reps went to Traylon Burks early in the year. But here's a list of receivers that he has more touchdowns than: CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, who's obviously not played much this year, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, Zay Flowers, DJ Moore, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman, and Devontae Adams. That's insane.
It's a pretty good group to be stacked up with, especially for a guy who, like we mentioned at the beginning of the year, was just stuck away on the depth chart behind Traylon Burks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. You know, all those, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the offense, whether it's been operated by Levis or Mason Rudolph, has been better since Nick Westbrook-Akina has been on the field instead of Traylon Burks. I don't find that to be a coincidence.
There's been one consistent with this team in its losing ways, and it's that Nick Westbrook-Akina has been the guy to kind of lead them towards some successes. Closing thoughts, Chris?
Maybe we should have just kept Kyle Phillips and put Nick Westbrook-Akina out there because those were Will Levis's favorite two targets last year. Maybe we just need to quit spending money on wide receivers and play those guys. I don't know.
We'll take a break here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. When we come back, Blaine Bishop joins the show. Stay tuned.
He shoots and he scores!
We're joined now, Terry McCormick, Blaine Keller, and Blaine Bishop, four-time Pro Bowler for the Titans. Blaine, first off, fun to share a name with somebody on the show today. Same spelling, too. That never happens for me.
Oh, man, that is incredible, man. I was hoping you had a great story for me. Like, hey, man, when you were playing, my mom named me after you or something, but I see that,
No, there was some NFL connection that I've been told. The details are hazy, but we can go ahead and say it was. We'll say that was the connection there. Thanks for joining us today, though.
Appreciate you guys having me, especially, my man, TK, man, Terry, for having me on, man. I've been knowing him for a long time, man.
Blaine, I want to jump right in. I know that, you've been on 104.5 The Zone. You've talked a little bit about the things that you need to see from Will Levis in order to make a determination on him. Yeah. After yesterday, are you encouraged that he's trending in the right direction and maybe giving some of the answers that this coaching staff has been wanting to see from him?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah, and I quantified that by saying, it's not based off of if he's throwing interceptions or anything else. It's the little nuances of the game. He was playing a really talented, very aggressive styled defense and who ranked in all categories pretty high. And I thought that if he continued to progress, which he did in this game, I thought it was a great, step forward. That'd be 2 games in a row that I thought he played efficient and didn't lose the game, and also showed me some wow. I've used the term I want him to be my point guard who shows flashes of greatness, because you want to be a facilitator throughout all the different times in a game that, some are different with blitzes, some with zone. You got to show patience, you got to show poise. You can't be drifting in the pocket. You got to determine when to throw the ball away. You got to determine when to run. There's a lot of different things, and I think he's growing in that. I think he was used to being more hero ball, and I'm a big arm guy. It's like hitting home runs. I'm gonna hit the home run or strike out. That's kind of his mentality, and it kind of played against him early in the season. So I think he's played really well. I know for him, it's always attached. I don't agree with the stat based off of the quarterback kind of follows the win column as well as a coach. There's so many different pieces to the puzzle for a quarterback to be successful in this league and to determine that he's the sole reason why you won a game. I don't think it's not. Now, you can say that at the end of a game if you're driving down to win, but I thought he was very serviceable and played winning football. I'm sure he'd love to have a couple throws back that he wish he would have made, maybe holding on to the ball a little bit. But we saw Sam Darnold, who's having a great day, who held on to the football, who I'm a big fan of. Everybody knows I wanted the Titans to sign him this offseason. Everybody laughed at me because he went to the Jets and he was only 20 years old. New York media at 20 in the starting quarterback, it's a recipe for disaster. He has the arm talent, everything else. He's a turnover magnet. Not too much in this game, in our game against the Titans, but he's shown old Sam Darnold. But he also has poise. He's grown now. He's 25, 26. He's still been in him, and this dude is still young. So we may have saw if Levis doesn't pan out, Sam Darnold may be available because he's a free agent.
I've heard that more than one place that a lot of people are talking about that because they feel like the Vikings, having drafted J.J. McCarthy, are at some point going to turn it over to him. And I like the point guard analysis that you made, that compares to that analogy. But I think to take that a step further, early in the season, I think Levis was an Allen Iverson type point guard. Now he's trying to be more of a John Stockton type point guard of getting the ball out of his hands.
That's even better, Terry, man. That is so true. And then, you want to be the scorer at times and you want to get it to Malone or whoever else, is on the team. So I think he's also one thing that has helped. And I hate to say this, it's not because he's not a good player. Diop was his comfort zone. And when you start bringing different pieces to the puzzle, which you had Ridley, who you're getting paying a lot of money to, so he becomes the number one piece. Well, I think Levis got confused because he was so much more comfortable with D-Hop. The pieces didn't fit the way they should. And that happens sometimes because when you're an athlete at the highest level, you're trying to appease to the other guys, trying to make everybody happy. Nobody's talking about it, but you're trying to do it. So I think that happened. Then D-Hop was injured early in the season. And then, so you extract that. Now, who is the number one receiver by far? There are no questions and no doubts. And then guess what? Everybody else falls in line behind that. And then it makes it easy for your first read. Levis had any issues with Ridley since he's been back, has he? What's the one thing that's different? Oh, it may be better, but Mr. D-Hop is not there. His comfort zone. And sometimes he was forcing the ball to him. Zaire picked 6. Shouldn't have thrown it to D-Hop. If you know anything about Zaire, you should pick on the young dude on the other side on a quick pass game. See, but he wanted to throw to his guy. So that happens sometimes. So now I think he's starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm in the groove. They can't close games, unfortunately. And it's not just him. It's everybody involved, even defense. I'm a little disappointed in defense. Every time the defense needs to stop, they can't get one in every single game that they are in. They can't come up with that critical stop. Guess what? You had the Nick Westbrook-Akina score. We had all the momentum, and then the Vikings drove right down the field and scored and took all the momentum and the gas out of you. It was like a gut punch to the gut.
Well, I want to go back to one last thought on Levis before we touch on the defense. There's always been that competitive spirit and that kind of motivation within Will, and he was a little emotional talking to reporters post-game, talking about chasing the feeling of him getting that first full win of his sophomore season. He had accounted for the one win in Miami, but of course exited with the injury there. How encouraging is it maybe to see that kind of motivation within a guy who has struggled the way that he has this year, kind of rode that roller coaster a little bit, and still wanting to be competitive and have a win for this team through the last couple of weeks of the season?
Well, I think, when you're a professional athlete, if you're not motivated, then what the heck are you doing for this? A lot of people say, oh, for the money. Well, it takes a little bit of competitive nature to even get to that level. It's almost impossible. So I wasn't surprised to hear any of that. I think I was a little more surprised that he divulged that much information, really, to the media. I think there's a part that I love that, Callahan, head coach Callahan and Will, because gives information, but the way they asked the question, he volunteered way too much information. But at the same time, you got to get a little insight, and we in the media love to get a little insight into the workings of a professional athlete. You don't make it to pros, so that's it's like a no-brainer for me, being that I play pro. As a your competitive nature is cancerous. That's how bad it is. You want to win at everything. Chess, checkers, cards, football, every throw. It is. Yeah. How you vacuum your car, if you do. Yeah, it's just that way, especially at quarterback. Details of what you have to do as a quarterback is just off the chart. So Levis has all those. Only thing that is his kryptonite is he acts like, in his brain, you just said it, sometimes like he's a running back or a linebacker. I don't want my mindset of my quarterback like that. I want that cool customer. No highs, no lows. You can show some emotion. Not until you are proven in this league can you actually do that. Tom Brady did it at the end when he was through that proven phase. No, it was like, yeah, we got him. That's all I need. Give me the ball. I got him. Yeah, I got him. That's it. Those are the things. There's a mental mindset of a quarterback in really every position that you would really prefer. And that is where he's actually getting to. You see him out there. Things are starting to slow down. He's making the right decision. I said his legs would be a big component in this game. They were. He was the leading rusher. Said it on the pregame show. So the game plan and him executing, man, he was on par. I give him at least an 85 in this game, and not doing any metrics or analytics or any of that. In my mind, he played winning football. Sometimes the quarterback just can only do it. All you have to do is go look at Joe Burrow. Look at his numbers over the last 5 games that they lost. 27-4 or something crazy numbers like that. He got all L's. Did he play winning football? Absolutely he did.
Blaine, briefly, you mentioned your qualms with the defense. What's one way do you think that they could get better over this next stretch of football? How can they play a winning brand to help out Levis?
I think that they're really hamstrung by, the cornerback injuries to just not really having a consistent pass rusher. And those are kryptonites coming in. I think the defensive staff really has done a good job considering their talent and what they have and with the injuries going in every game. You got Sweat and Simmons, who were dominant in this game, I felt pretty much consistently throughout the game. They had pressure, but I don't know. I think they finished with 2 sacks maybe or something, if I can recall. But they're number one in some categories. And I hate to say this, and I've been saying it is, but they're not a number one defense really in any category. Like when you're playing them, you don't fear anything about the Tennessee Titans defense. Maybe, Jeffrey Simmons when he's fully healthy. Played our team. Nobody feared us. Got John Hurt. Gotta have that player who they fear, and then all of a sudden that makes things a lot easier for everybody else.
Blaine Bishop, Blaine Keller, Terry McCormick, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.